official is prepared to comment. Religious groups are calling it Judgment Day. There's panic on the streets of London as an increasing number of reports of serious attacks on people who are literally being eaten alive.
A witness reports are sketchy. One unifying detail seems to be that the attackers in many instances appear to be...
Okay, let's talk about Army of the Dead, Zack Snyder's long-awaited, much-hyped zombie movie. This movie was first announced in 2007, if you can believe that. That is 14 years ago. It has been described as caught up in development hell at Warner Brothers. So for many, many years, until the rights were purchased by Netflix, this movie was being produced by Warner Brothers, but not actually like filmed yet, because casting didn't take place until after the Netflix acquisition, and the filming didn't even begin until 2019. So this is a movie that was conceived of only a few years after Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake came out, but then took a majorly long hiatus for years and years and years. Well, Snyder did other stuff, of course, notably, the DC Comics Snyderverse stuff, which I have to say, like Army of the Dead, was fairly mediocre. I think Snyder's a talented guy who needs something to, like so many artists, he needs somebody who can come in and help him avoid his less great tendencies. And I think Snyder has an eye for cinematography. I think he has he's a very visual storyteller, and Army of the Dead, like a lot of his stuff, is visually very sumptuous. This is a very colorful zombie movie. A zombie movie that takes place in Las Vegas, in the desert surrounding Las Vegas, and in a ruined Las Vegas, which is a really interesting setting for a zombie film. And I love that it's surrounded. After the zombie outbreak happens there, they surround the city with a wall built with shipping containers to contain this horde of zombies inside. And that's a cool visual. And there's just a lot of good visual stuff, especially the over-the-top action sequence stuff, like the when the heroes are racing through casinos, blasting hundreds of zombies, and the actual sort of the alpha zombies, the not the brainless zombies. There's a whole subset of sort of more advanced zombies, and they are visually really cool. There's a lot of really fun stuff going on with just how the zombies were crafted, especially sort of the leader zombies. And there's one in particular, the king zombie and then his queen, who are really cool looking zombies, and they're really interesting take on zombies, especially after I've been watching The Walking Dead for so long, and Fear the Walking Dead, and these shows where zombies are just pretty basic. To be fair, The Walking Dead does a good job with the makeup and stuff, but you can only do shambling, brain-dead zombies for so long. Anyways, the movie itself is too long. I would say that might be my biggest criticism, other than how sort of derivative a lot of the plot is. I am not the first to say it, but there are a lot of similarities between the plot of Army of the Dead and Aliens from James Cameron, the sequel to Alien. I won't go into depth on those similarities in this video, but they are there, and they are not subtle. This one does some stuff differently in that this is a zombie heist movie. This is a team of sort of elite fighters and a safecracker and a pilot. The pilot was recast after the original actor was accused of sexual misconduct. That's a whole nother story. We won't include it in the review, or this is more of an impressions than a review. Anyways, this elite team is hired to go get a bunch of money out of Vegas that was left there, and they only have a certain amount of time before the president, who is clearly modeled off of a Trump-style president, is going to nuke the city to end the zombie scourge. Because Vegas is the only place in the world where the zombies are right now, and so they can just take them all out, and theoretically all the people are out of there at this point, so no big deal. So they've got to go in, they've got to get the money from the safe, they got to get out, they got to do all of this without getting killed by zombies, and of course there is a mole, not a mole, but an agent of the boss that hires them, who's going to screw everything up. So we've seen that in lots of movies too. So we've got Dave Bautista playing Scott Ward, Ella Purnell as his daughter Kate Ward, Omari Hardwick as Vanderhoof, his like right hand man. We've got Ana de la Reguera as Maria Cruz, who's Batista's new love interest, though we don't realize that right away. Garrett Dillahunt plays Martin, who's the bad guy in the crew. Tig Notaro is the new pilot that replaced Chris D'Elia, and plenty of other cast members. So they go in, they have to get the money. A large portion of the movie takes place with them getting to the safe, overcoming various obstacles, zombies. They have to leave a sacrifice for these alpha zombies at one point. There's a zombie tiger, which I still feel like is a Walking Dead joke, especially because Dillahunt, who is on Fear the Walking Dead, one of his lines when he sees the tiger is, "Oh, that's crossing a line," which was pretty funny to me. Once they get to the safe, of course, the rest of the movie is trying to get the money out of Vegas, and they run into lots of different problems. And I won't spoil that in this impressions piece. I want you to be able to see it yourself. Go into more depth on that later. But things go wrong because things always go wrong, or else it wouldn't be a very fun movie. The movie itself does a great job when it's focused on the action, the humor, and just being an over-the-top, visually sumptuous, exciting film. There's some good fight scenes. There's lots of good blood and guts and gore. There's some scary parts, although it's not really a scary zombie movie. It's more of an action zombie movie, and that's fine. It's a heist movie. It's not a horror movie. Where the movie fails, other than being a ripoff of Aliens, is anytime it tries to be emotional or like tell a meaningful story, especially between Scott and Kate, this father-daughter pair that have all this bad blood ever since the apocalypse began. It just doesn't work. It's slow, it's boring, and it's not slow and boring in a good way. It's not really like, the dialogue is fine, but it's just kind of like, if I were to when I rewatch this movie so that I can catch more stuff for a full review, I will know exactly where I want to fast forward. And this is, I think I say this a lot about movies that are 2+ hours long. Do they need to be that long? There are some movies, there are epic historical dramas that need to be 3 hours long. But do these movies, like Army of the Dead, need to be over 2 hours long? Or could we cut 20 minutes and have a better movie that's also shorter and doesn't occupy so much of our time? I mean, and here we're talking about Snyder, who's, the Snyder Cut is like 400 hours long or some shit. So we're not, 2 hours and 15 minutes or whatever, 2 hours, 20 minutes, whatever it is, isn't really that bad by comparison, but you really could cut a lot of this sort of, there's a whole subplot with one of Kate's friends from this refugee camp where they're keeping people who, it's an allegory, I guess, to the immigration shit that goes on in this country. I don't know. It's sort of half-assed that whole bit, but one of her friends has gone into the city ahead of all this and hasn't come back. So she wants to find her friend. This causes even more problems, but it's really kind of it's a pretty weak plot overall that doesn't add to the whole movie, except for giving you a little more conflict at the end. But they could have cut a lot of that and still had a lot of the same sort of beats at the end of the movie, and it would have been better for it. So cut that. There's just a little too much exposition at points, and I think you could again cut that and let people find out what's going on without the exposition. I mean, this is generally a good rule of thumb if you can show instead of tell. But overall, the pacing issues aside, the unevenness aside, this is a fun movie. It just doesn't know if it wants to be a fun movie or a serious movie. It's one of those, it's a zombie movie, so it's inherently not serious, but it tries to add in just enough of that serious emotional shit to pretend as though it is kind of a serious movie, and in the process, it loses a bit of its identity. So we have kind of a movie that feels like several different movies. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. Zombie plus heist is cool, but zombie plus heist plus social commentary and emotional father-daughter bonding shit. Just, I don't know. It doesn't, it's there's too much of it, or it's just too ham-fisted. Whatever the case, dialing that back and dialing up the over-the-top, gory, goofy, funny stuff, while still keeping this sort of, this interesting zombie civilization that's taken root in Vegas, I think could have been a better formula. The film just sort of gets lost in itself. So that's my first impressions of Army of the Dead. I don't regret watching it. I know it's derivative. I know it's nothing. It's no masterpiece. But as far as zombie cinema goes, it's a fun ride, and it's a nice welcome break from Walking Dead, which is, Fear the Walking Dead, Walking Dead. This is my main source of zombie storylines these days. Is it as good as something like Kingdom on Netflix, which is a South Korean television limited series? No. It's not as original. It's not as exciting. The characters are not nearly as deep. But again, that's that has multiple episodes to tell a much longer story, and this is only a 2-hour, 15-minute movie. So it's not the best zombie stuff out there. It's not the worst. It's worth a couple hours. It's a fun Friday night. Just don't expect too much from it, and you won't be let down. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. I have more to say about this film once I give it another watch or two. And so stay tuned. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to this channel, and ring the little bell, because it is a magic bell, and everyone should be ringing bells, especially this bell on this channel. Right? Peace.